Good evening. How you guys doing?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing
Hello.
excellent. Welcome back to another episode of TSP, where we sit down and talk to our nation's heroes every Sunday evening. And we really appreciate Mr. Goggin jumping on with us. This is actually our second week in a row with a fighter pilot, man. That's pretty cool.
All right. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, that's some good stuff. So before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to our Patreon members, everybody that supports us. Obviously, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And again, Christmas is right around the corner, so you might want to go ahead and buy a copy of the
Shameless
cookbook
plug.
for Christmas.
Shameless.
So, sir, what I did was my two favorite things is cooking and talking to veterans. So what I did is I wrote a cookbook, and this is full of recipes, but it's also full of quotes from the previous guests on our podcast. So, and all the proceeds go to a nonprofit I started where we send veterans and first responders to sporting events. I actually have two Marines in Detroit right now at the Monday Night Football game for Detroit and the Raiders.
Yeah.
And they're both previous guests on our show, so I'm super excited about that. I hope Detroit pulls out a big win for them.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
I'm praying
yeah.
for them.
That'd be good.
Yeah, they've been sending me pictures along the way. They were about 3 hours. They have about a 3-hour drive to get there, so they've been sending me pictures all afternoon. So I'm pretty excited for them. They look pretty excited about going. So that's pretty awesome that we're allowed to do that, to bless them. So the concept of this podcast is veterans and mental health and how you dealt with the military. And like I said, all the proceeds that come through this podcast, my other podcast, the cookbook, everything gets generated, goes right into the nonprofit Minutes Wisely, and where we send veterans and first responders to sporting events. And that's our little way of trying to combat veteran suicide. As we all know, it's a horrible epidemic that's going on the last 20, 30 years. It's crazy. But that's all I got. Chaplain, do you have anything before we get to Mr. Goggin?
I do. If you're in Murfreesboro, get ready. We have our VA Veterans Day Parade at the Alvin C. York at 11 o'clock on November 4th. We have the Marine Corps League Ball in Franklin at 1800 that same night. And then we also have Veterans Day celebration on the Marine Corps birthday on the 10th. I will be emceeing on the square. Thank you, Barbara Smith Pitto, for asking me. It's my first. I've never done MC before, and I'll try and keep it fun. And that's it. That's all I got.
So,
All right.
I didn't know that. Did I know you were emceeing that? I'm definitely gonna have to show up for that one.
Oh man, come on! You know I get nervous with no people.
Hey, but I want to be in the back heckling you.
That's okay. Yeah, the Sons of American Revolution will be there too, heckling me. So it's gonna be great. Awesome! I can't wait.
All right, excellent, great job, man. So today we're sitting down with Mr. Goggin. He's a F-14 fighter pilot. How you doing today,
Another
sir?
F-14. Damn.
Doing good. Yeah. Thanks for the invite, guys.
Yes. So, where are you living at these days?
I live down in Miami Beach, so
Oh, very
Terrible
nice.
place to live.
Very
Terrible
nice.
place to live. These.
Hey, oh my gosh, the Bruins are playing the Panthers tonight.
there you go. I'll be
That's right.
watching football. I'll be watching
Yeah.
football.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be watching football too. Nobody cares about hockey right now. The Lions are on, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, let's start with when you're a teen. Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Southern California, a town called San Pedro, which is kind of right by the Palos Verdes Peninsula, just on the cliffs across from Catalina Island, right on the LA Harbor.
Oh, excellent.
Grew up there, went to high school there and college down there also.
Where do you go to school? I mean,
Cal
college.
State, Long Beach State.
Whoa, nice.
What'd you major in?
Well, there were a couple majors. I kind of bounced around between engineering, and I eventually went to political science because I thought I was headed towards law school. But, you go see the Blue Angels and it changes some decisions quickly.
Yes.
Those guys are cool, man. Oof. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah. In the old A4s, those things were screaming.
Yeah, that was a cool airplane.
Yeah, for sure.
So were you a pilot before you joined the Navy?
No, I had never flown. So, I learned from start down there in Pensacola when I arrived.
That always boggles my mind that they take this young kid and they turn him into a pilot, man. Like, how's that even possible?
Well, it's the best training you can find in the world, and they have a methodical way about doing it.
You probably have to have a higher score than a 54 on your ASVAB to be a pilot, huh?
Yeah, probably.
Hey, I just wanted to be a grunt, and I did ACD. Took me 15 minutes. I was like, okay, good to go.
Yeah.
You'll be a ground pounder. I'm like, all right, sweet.
That's funny.
What year did you join the Navy?
So I went in 1986 when I graduated college. Literally a week after graduation, I was driving from Southern California over to Pensacola and getting my head shaved and doing a couple thousand push-ups for the gunnery sergeant. And we had the Marine Corps drill instructors pounding the course, and there were about 70 of us showed up down there in Pensacola in the summer of '86. It was hot and humid, and our class, the program goes for about 4 months. They call it AOCS back then, Aviation Officer Candidate School.
Yeah.
We graduated about half that number, because about half of them either dropped out or fell back. So and then you get your commission in the Navy. And so that was it was a good course. I enjoyed it. It was difficult, but it was a good start.
How long was AOCS?
It's about 4 months. It was about 4 months. Takes you through. And it's a good mix of officer training, physical training, a little bit of aviation training where they get you started in your ground school. And, it's the movie, Officer and a Gentleman, if you've ever seen that movie. It's a pretty good course.
Yeah.
Good movie.
So,
yeah.
Richard Gere's finest work.
Yeah.
How did you end up with the F-14?
Well, so I graduated pretty good in the AOCS. I think I was number 4 in that class. And then after that, we went up to just about a half hour up the road from Pensacola. There's a base called Whiting Field. And you get there and check in and you start training on the T-34C model, which is a turboprop. It's a powerful aircraft, about 700 horsepower. I think derated a little bit, but that's a high performance machine to have your first flying lessons in a turboprop with that much horsepower. So the way they did it was it's about a 6-month course up there, and you get about 75 flight hours. And at the culmination of that, depending on your grades, they divide you into 3 pipelines. One was the jet pipeline, another one was the multi-engine, pipeline, and the third one was helicopter. So I think everybody was scrambling and working hard to get in the jet pipeline, obviously the most desirable area. So it's about a third end up with jets. And then when I got jets, there's a couple bases you can request. I ended up in South Texas, in Beeville, Texas, which is south of San Antonio, north of Corpus Christi. It's a couple stoplight town. There's not much there. And, then the training accelerates as you get into these high performance jets, which when I was there, it was the T2 Buckeye and also the TA4 Skyhawk, which was what the Blue Angels were flying. That's a Vietnam era jet, very high performance airplane, a lot of fun to fly. So I was in Beeville for a little over a year. You're getting a couple hundred hours of flight time there. And then you get your wings and you probably have 260 hours of flight time, and you put in a dream sheet telling them where you want to go. And the F-18 was alluring because it was fairly new back in the 80s. And but I wanted to be a real fighter pilot, and real fighter pilots end up in Miramar. So that's where I wanted to be, and that's where I ended up. That was my first choice.
So I will bet you a cup of coffee that you talked to my brother at least once. He was an air traffic controller for the Navy in Beeville, Texas.
Probably. If he was there around 86, 87, I probably did.
I'm pretty sure that's because he was a year older than me, or went a year before me. So I went in 85 to 88. So that's like his sweet spot right there. I'm pretty sure you had to have talked to him.
Probably did. I mean, we were screaming all over that South Texas countryside. And, it was a lot of fun, actually. But, still very competitive because we're fighting for slots and we're fighting for different airplanes. And, so it was, you had to study hard and fly hard, and but you ultimately made it very rewarding.
Yeah. Is that where you learn how to land on an aircraft carrier there?
You do. Your first carrier landings are just south. Well, at that time, just south of Corpus Christi. They would bring the USS Lexington, which was a classic carrier, and they would bring that over there. I think it was based in Pensacola. They would bring it over towards Texas, and we would fly down there and go land on it. In the T2 Buckeye, we would go out and get I guess about just 4 day landings with a couple touch and goes as a first look. But when you go out there, you're solo. There's no instructor with you.
Wow.
You sink or swim, and the Lexington's a real small deck. It's a small carrier. And then once you get into the A4 Skyhawk, it was a little bit more elaborate because that's more of a high performance airplane. And we would go out and get, I think it was 6 traps and a few touch and goes, and then you were carrier qualified and ready to go out to the fleet. Now, looking back on it, those carrier landings were nothing compared to what I was going to be doing later because, just the sheer size of the F-14 dwarfs those airplanes.
Yeah, that thing's massive.
That Skyhawk is a beautiful plane. I'm sorry, I'm just looking it up. Wow, you flew that?
Yeah, it's a great airplane. There's a couple of them for sale online. If you want one, you can probably go buy them.
How much? Like 500,000?
Probably about 3 million or 5 million.
$3 million? Yeah, right.
You got that?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Damn.
So
that is a sweet looking. That's a sexy aircraft right there.
Yeah, it was a Vietnam attack aircraft. Actually built as a one-way bomber, a nuclear bomber. But it was very tall. It sat up tall on the landing gear, and it was a really cool airplane with a high roll rate, and that's why the Blue Angels flew it. It was a really good airshow airplane, also.
How many years did you put in the Navy?
Almost 10 years. So just about halfway. I kind of, we can talk about it later, but I kind of got caught in the downsizing in the mid 90s, which many of us did. But and then once I got my wings and the dream sheet went out, I got my first choice, which was head out to Miramar, and that's where I wanted to be, being a Southern California guy. And of course, with the success of Top Gun and all that, it was the place to be if you wanted to be a fighter pilot. It was Miramar, and I showed up thinking, that I was pretty special, I guess. But when you get there, you realize you go into the officers club, and it was a bunch of men in there, and we were just boys showing up in the front gate.
Yeah.
So we had a lot to learn.
Did you instruct at Top Gun? Were you an instructor?
No, I never did that. Actually, I didn't do instructing at all. We had a lot of guys who went back to the training command. My old roommates went back and became instructors, but I was moving on and doing other things. Top Gun instructor was there weren't very many people doing that. It was a very small club, and our air wing was heavily tasked during those times. How carriers like the Nimitz, they go into the shipyard and they're in there for a long time, and so the carriers that are active are getting turned around and sent back out to sea quickly, to cover up for the the ones that are in repairs. So our air wing was busy in real world flying, as opposed to going on detachments up to Canada or red flag and things like that.
Have you ever landed on the Carl Vinson?
I have some landings on the Carl Vinson. You were on the Carl Vinson, right?
Woo, yes, sir.
I've landed on 5 aircraft carriers. So I've been on Vincent, Independence, Ranger. Ranger was my carrier. That was the one I have the most on. And of course, Independence, the training carrier. So,
Are you a shellback?
absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. No
So am
slime. Yep,
Sorry, Fleek, are you a shellback? You are
Yes.
a shellback, aren't you? So all three of us
Absolutely.
are. Good.
Yes.
Awesome.
it's a day you'll never forget.
I got pictures to prove it, and it just
Yeah.
makes me cringe every
My
single time I see
certificate's
it.
right over there.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to like see pictures of it, but it happened.
Yeah, I don't want to see pictures of that either.
I was on the Kearsarge when I got my shellback ceremony.
I'm sure it was a little different than the carrier. We had so many with 5,000 people on there.
Yeah, we were on like a 3,000 LHD-3 WASP class ship, which
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, I love the Navy. My dad was Navy. He was a lieutenant commander. He told me stories. I hear stories every day from Fleek about the Navy, and that was the best 7 months of my life. Was on that
Good
Navy
time.
ship.
All right.
Did
Should've
Dubai
joined the Navy.
twice, and Malta, and some other places.
Yeah. Well, back then we were kind of at the tail end of the Cold War. So my
Right.
first times at sea, I probably spent a few years at sea, more than 2 years. But the beginning was really fighting the Cold War, and there's some good stories that go along with that. But that was still going on for a few more years, and then the Berlin Wall came down later.
Yes. So in my time on the Carl Vinson, every time we pulled out, there was always a Russian ship following us, picking up our garbage, or Russian bears flying overhead where the Tomcat guys were intercepting them. I have a bunch of pictures of that.
We were tasked, many times to go out and chase Russian airplanes around. In fact, one night, it's kind of a funny, kind of an interesting story, I would say. The Soviets, they claimed 200 miles of territorial water, and Reagan and Bush said, no, we recognize 12 miles. So there was quite a dispute, and they ran that carrier right down from the Bering Sea, right down the coast of the Soviet Union. I was the junior guy sitting watch in the middle of the night, sitting in the airplane on the Alert 5, ready to go airborne in 5 minutes. And I think my shift was 2 to 4 in the morning because I was the junior guy. And here they go, launch the fighters. And everyone's scrambling. And I really didn't know why, but I started the engines and blasted off the front of the ship at 3 o'clock in the morning. And my wingman, who was on the catapult next to me, he couldn't get started. His airplane went down. So I was by myself heading out there at 24 years old.
Damn.
And immediately I saw 18 Russian bombers coming at us.
18, holy moly.
In 2 waves, and so I have, I'm just a kid, but I was, I had a lot of missiles on board and out there to prosecute all these airplanes and join up on them. And they're shining spotlights at me. And on the radio, I can hear everybody, behind me trying to get airborne. They were waking people up to jump in airplanes and go out and help me because I was, way out there by myself off the coast of the Soviet Union. So,
that was a bit scary for you as a 24-year-old, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was. We were trained for it, but it would have been nice to have a wingman. But
man, I would be shitting my pants if that happened. Wow.
But that's what we were. That was our mission. And we were well trained, prepared for that, out there in the middle of the night. And after we basically showed them that we had enough airplanes and enough missiles airborne that
is that your picture, Fleek?
Yeah, it is.
The ones I was chasing around were Badger bombers. They weren't bears.
Yeah.
I've chased bears too, but this night was Badgers.
Hey, sir, what was your rank? Lieutenant JG, Lieutenant Commander?
Lieutenant JG, and then Lieutenant, and then I actually was in the reserves, and then they had the drawdown right as I was about to make Lieutenant Commander. I had a job at the Reserve Squadron at Miramar, which was Fighter Squadron 302 Stallions, and my goal was to stay and get my retirement and everything. But back around 96, they had the BRAC, the base realignment, and the downsizing. They shut down a big chunk of the Naval Air Reserve, took our airplanes, and they didn't really have a place for us to go at the time. But it was a great squadron that I was in. It was a bunch of really talented guys, including the first officer from American Flight 11 on 9/11, Tom McGinnis. He was a good friend who unfortunately was in the wrong flight at the wrong time on 9/11, but he was a squadron mate of mine in that squadron. And but it was something I wish had not been disbanded so quickly.
Right. So, do you fly now?
I do. I work for a big airline. I don't know if I can say, but I work for a big airline in Miami, and I fly a lot of international. Plus, I own a Tucano, which is a turboprop airplane that I fly around and do some air shows. In fact, I'm going to take it to Pensacola next week. But it's very similar to a T6. It's a really cool turboprop trainer. So
do you know Lieutenant Wiz Buckley by chance?
No, I don't think so.
We were just with him a couple weeks ago, and he has an L-39.
L-39.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
He flew it from Boca Raton to Murfreesboro, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I
say the least.
Guys flying around. I just came back from Oshkosh where we won the Warbird Turbine Warbird award, but they had a lot of L-39s there. They also had the MiG-23 that just crashed.
Oh man!
And those guys were parked next to me for Oshkosh, so I saw them all week, flying that airplane around. So that was cool. But my squadron, VF2, this squadron here, we were and Ranger, we were turned around quickly in the 1990 timeframe, when the Gulf War I was going on. And so we left quickly San Diego and headed out as quickly as we could over to the Gulf. And we were the first aircraft carrier that went, us and Midway were the first two aircraft carriers together to go into the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf, depending on how you want to call it. But they hadn't had aircraft carriers in that body of water for 50 years, I heard. And so
did you fire any weapons? Are you allowed to talk about that?
I chased an Iraqi airplane into Iran, but I couldn't quite get in a missile launch envelope quick enough. He was pretty far away, but it was at nighttime, and I knew where I was on the map, but I wanted to chase him a little further. And the AWACS was telling me, you need to turn around because you're in the wrong country. I ignored him the first couple times he called me, but about the third time when he was yelling, I kind of had to turn around and let this guy go. But we
that's funny.
Yeah, it was about 6 weeks of air warfare, and we had some really good people in our squadron that including my friends, and we did a lot of different kinds of missions. We did a lot of strikes, but my squadron was also tasked for to do aerial reconnaissance because a lot of the satellite imagery, they couldn't get it because the country was covered with smoke. And so the F-14 TARPS mission, which was a reconnaissance, was a high priority for Washington, D.C. and the battle planners. So we were out there. There's a squadron like VF2. We only had, I think, 4 pilots that were qualified to fly the TARPS missions. And so my roommate, Fritz Landina, and I, we were running around taking a lot of pictures of battle damage and getting shot at and hauling at. One pass, haul ass is what we used to say. get the pictures and get them back so the intelligence guys could decipher them and put out the targets for the next day.
Yeah. So what they had, that was with the SAM, right?
Well, the SAMs, they would have known surface-to-air missile rings, and we would see those on the map. But sometimes we had to fly in there to go take our pictures. So we would have some radar jammers with us, and also we called them harm shooters. They're high-speed anti-radiation missiles on these A6s. And so they would kind of cover us while we would, almost like a football move, we would feint in one direction and then peel off and fly through the SAM ring at as fast as the F-14 could fly. And when you're taking the pictures, you kind of have to be fairly straight and level to get the right camera footage. My wingman would cover me, but you kind of have to, you're a little bit vulnerable in that position.
Yeah.
And then, and then we would, head out of there as quick as we could and go back, and, they would download the film and we get to see it later.
It must take some balls of steel to do something like that.
Again, it's training, and not only that, but we had good leadership in the squadron. We had, a skipper named Action Jackson and JJ Quinn, and we had some people who were, they were warriors. The group ahead of us, guys like Bud Martin, they were a group of warriors who trained us, and that squadron was just it was full of a bunch of all-star. In my book, it was all-stars. I felt very humbled just to be part of them because they were so good.
Yeah. So how many traps did you have on a carrier? Did you keep
I had
count?
about 379, of which about 171 were at night. So it's quite a bit of night flying.
Wow.
And those night traps are what gives you gray hair and makes you lie awake at night sometimes.
How do you learn how to land on a moving deck?
Well, I think the main thing is in the daytime, the F-14 was a difficult machine to bring on the carrier. We didn't have digital flight controls, and we had fairly slow spooling engines, and plus that big, huge airframe, just a big airplane on glide slope. But in the daytime, I think we all got pretty good at it. And then at nighttime, some days were easier than others, depending on, it's pretty dark out there at night. I mean, you remember it's extremely dark, and
Spooky.
when the ship is moving, it may go down 10 feet or 15 feet, but it's going to come back. It's not going to stop. It's going to go up another 10 or 15 feet. So if you have 30 feet of ship motion on the back end of that ship, the F-14, we only had 10 feet of clearance back there on a normal landing. So we had 10 feet of clearance trying to get aboard. If the ship is moving 20 or 30 feet, you kind of have to get in sync with that. And we trusted the LSOs. I was lucky. My first cruise, we had a guy named Bug Roach, who is very legendary. He's passed away in an accident off San Diego in an A4 Skyhawk. But he was a very legendary LSO, and he was good at getting pilots back aboard safely at night. And so they would give us information that we couldn't see maybe, and tell us, hey, you're looking good, keep it there, or the goal is don't chase the ship. If it's going up and down, you don't want to chase it. You just want to try to average out things and stay stable and smooth. And then, hopefully when you get close to the ship, it's in parameters to land. Otherwise, they just wave you off and you go try it again. Yeah.
You mentioned the Bering Sea. We did something similar in January of 1986, 87. We were on our way back from Westpac, and Ronald Reagan diverted us we were supposed to go back to Alameda, California, but instead we went up to the Bering Sea, and this was in January. And talk about a rocking deck, man. There was snowstorms, there was ice. They said if you fall off the ship or you had to eject, your life expectancy is like 3 seconds. So it was very nerve-wracking. It was probably one of the only times I was actually like legitimately scared on a ship.
It's extreme up there, the fog and the winter time. And if you're flying, you're wearing a dry suit underneath your flight suit, and it's extremely difficult to move. Ugh. It's a very bulky.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I've been in a dry suit. That's terrible. Wow.
It's very difficult to fly wearing a dry suit. I've done it. So.
Well, I'm a scuba diver, and I've worn one, and I hate them. I don't like them at all.
Yeah,
I don't even know how to fly, but I don't like wearing a dry suit.
Yeah, true. So a couple cruises on Ranger. We went back, and then we had to do Operation Southern Watch, where they had the no-fly zones, and we had to go enforce that. And then they called us up and said, "Hey, Somalia is blowing up. You need to get down there to go take care of these warlords." I don't know if you remember much about that.
Yeah, sure.
So we were down there, and we had to go do a real long TARPS mission. I think it was 400 miles each way, and a lot of refueling. And that was an interesting mission, just because we were coming back from the mission, and the CO of the carrier called us on the radio, which is very rare. They don't normally call us. And he said, "Hey, you guys, it's a different era when I'm watching you live on CNN and you're not even back landed on the ship yet." And the minute we landed, they grabbed our film, and they grabbed me by the arm and said, "The Admiral wants to see you." And I went to the corridors of the ship I'd never seen before, where they have stars on the floor.
Yeah. Blue tile.
Yeah, exactly. And he was on the satellite phone talking to, I think it was the JC, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was talking to somebody pretty big. And he just hands me the satellite phone because the reporters were saying that we were shot at by shoulder-fired SAMs. Now, I don't know if it fired and went stupid. We were, you're going fast. You don't always see those things, but
right.
They wanted to know if we were engaged from ground fire, because that was going to determine their course of action. So it was it's pretty weird to fly a mission, and then you get handed a satellite phone to go talk to Washington D.C.
Oh yeah.
How was his room? Was it big?
Oh, they're
big
nice, big, yeah, a little bit more than we had up in Bullet Alley.
No, I saw my CO's room, and he was like bunking with another captain, and I'm like, wow, our O3s get like nothing, and then like the whatever his name, whatever rank that is, they get like, three big old rooms and a bathroom.
Oh yeah.
With the blue curtains. Now for Marine, we had the red curtains. The Navy, they had the blue curtains.
Yep. No,
never go in officer country ever. You're never supposed to.
We had a good little part of the Ranger cordoned off for us, and good times were had up there. Generally after a night mission, we'd all kind of get together and tell some stories, or maybe have some crew juice. But
some what? What is that, sir? What did you say?
Something to calm the nerves.
Okay.
that didn't exist as far as
I know, because if our guys did, we'd be up at Captain's Mast in a hurry.
Well, you're not gonna really get one of those scary night traps and then just immediately fall asleep. It's pretty much
for real. I could imagine, man.
They get you pretty wound up. So I think maybe there was a little bit of a blind eye turned, at least in those days, before Tailhook, which I don't know. We can talk about that too. I was there.
Oh, you went to Tailhook?
I was there. I was at the famous Tailhook.
Holy moly!
What's Tailhook? What is that, Navy guys? What is that?
It's a convention for like aviators.
Yeah, they still have it. It's in Reno, Nevada, in September, I believe. I was there not this year, but the last year. But it's just it's really a convention. But back in those days was a little bit rowdier, and especially the year they had problems. It was because we all came back from the Gulf War, and everybody wanted to find their buddies and tell their stories, and what did you see and where were you guys and that sort of thing. But the actual event on the third floor of the Hilton Hotel in Las Vegas was rowdy. There were thousands of aviators there, and there were also people from other walks of life. There were students from UNLV there. I even saw Mike Tyson walking around the lobby.
Hell yeah!
No,
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
What happened was there was a girl who was a helicopter pilot, and she kind of had a reputation for partying with the guys. And anyway, she was an admiral's aide, and I think what happened was the hallway was so crowded in the evening that you literally were wall-to-wall people. And I think she came on a group of people. I hate to say, I think they might have been Marines, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably.
They kind of wouldn't
probably were.
They wouldn't let her pass, and so they were harassing her a little bit. I think just in fun. But then when she think she got a little bit wordy with them, and then I think one of them or two of them grabbed her a little bit, inappropriately, and it turned into the biggest scandal you ever saw that lasted years and changed the whole face of the Navy. So even today the Navy's changed because of that. So we all got investigated. Everybody who was there got called in and investigated into that, but they really never. I don't think they ever really figured out who it was, because there were thousands of people in that big, huge. It's like a U-shaped hallway where all the rooms were bars, and every room had a sliding glass door opening to the pool. So it was just a huge social event with a couple thousand people up there. So it was an exercise in futility, I think, that ruined some good careers, including the admiral who was her boss. But he didn't deserve that.
Right.
But that's it was and then it wasn't very very long after that when the political figures got involved, and next thing you knew, we had 4 girls showing up at Miramar, 2 pilots and 2 Rios in the back seat. So we kind of said, okay, and I got to know one of them, Kara, who ended up getting killed. And she was a good pilot, a good person, and it was a very difficult time at Miramar because of all the political correctness and that sort of thing. We're not going to talk politics, but the Navy got put through, after Tailhook got put through the meat grinder, let's just say. And unfortunately, Kara got killed in the Tomcat behind, I think it was the Abraham Lincoln, maybe. I'm not sure, but I think it was one of the carriers, and it was a pretty bad accident that caused a lot of eye-opening all the way to Washington, D.C., because they're the ones who were the architects of that, trying to get 4 girls in the F-14 community at Miramar.
Did both pilots die in that accident?
No, they ejected. The Rio barely got a parachute. His parachute opened literally as he's hitting the water, so he lived. She never got a shoot. She basically hit the water in the ejection seat, and she ended up going down there with the airplane. They eventually found her, and I think she's buried at Arlington. And I knew her a little bit, from being around Miramar, and I try to be encouraging to her because the training in the F-14 is very difficult. It's way different than flight school. I thought, the flight school that I was in, in Texas and such was it was difficult, but compared to flying the F-14, it was night and day, really. The training in the Tomcat's very, it was difficult. And I think the girls were having a hard time at it, but they were working hard. And I think some of the instructors were not completely happy with the situation, but that wasn't my decision. I was busy doing my own, my own squadron things.
So the pressure on your body in these Tomcats, is it like very taxing on your body? You have to work out a lot.
It is. I think most of the guys in that community were in shape. We did these physical fitness tests. They didn't force us to go to the gym or anything, but you certainly had to be able to take the airplane out to its limits. Now, in the book, the limit was around 7 Gs, 6.5 Gs, I believe. But I mean, if you needed to pull on the stick to, I know guys who took them up to 10 Gs. And I had one day out in near Yuma, Arizona, where, I kind of just about put myself to sleep because we got jumped by a bunch of airplanes and we were in a defensive position. So we were trying to egress and get out of there as quickly as possible. And next thing you knew, I was not able to see. I was kind of flying blind for a couple seconds while my body was trying to catch up with the G, and the G meter was pretty close to 10. So it's not something I want to do ever again, especially at this age. No way.
Right. Did you guys have to wear those suits where they blew up with air to try to push the blood back down?
We did. We would plug in. You wear it's like a pair of jeans that you zip on, and then we would plug into the airplane. And when you're pulling on the stick and pulling G's, it would fill up the G suit with air, and it's very tight, so it would compress your legs and your stomach to try to keep the blood in your upper body and ideally in your head. But if you watch the Blue Angels, they don't fly with G suits. They just overcome it. I think a G suit helps, if you're pulling 7 Gs, it maybe relieves 1 or 2 of them. It's not going to just make you miraculously able to pull 8 or 9 Gs because it doesn't have that capability.
Wow. They were, I actually saw them for the first time in Smyrna this past year. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They had the Blue Angels, the F-35s, the Marine one, the Air Force one, and I was like, I couldn't believe what I saw. That F-35, it did like this, and I'm like, I didn't even know the airplane could actually like do that. It was doing like a Tokyo drift in the middle of the air. I'm like, is that even possible?
Well, you've probably seen Top Gun 2, right? Top Gun
I
Maverick.
have, yes.
And they have that scene where that airplane does the funky chicken, and those guys are both wide-eyed looking at it, and that's what some of these 5th generation fighters can do. The airplanes we flew were 4th generation, so we didn't really have that capability in the 4th generation airplanes, but still they're pretty powerful airplanes, good fighters. The thing about the Tomcat was it had amazing range. We could go very far in it. We could carry a lot on that airplane. Some of these new airplanes, that are out there in both the Navy and the Air Force some of them are, when you start loading them up with bombs and fuel tanks, they're not all that fast. They're barely supersonic, and they certainly can't go that far. So I think, the branches of the service have traded, those qualities in airplanes for other things. They have, things like stealth. So, it's all trade-offs. In my generation, we had lots of airplanes that were that could go far and carry a lot, and those two designs are not as desirable, I guess, in their eyes today. But warfare is different. Now with the F-35, the F-35 doesn't run around in a big group of airplanes. They kind of go off of by themselves, and they're really a battlefield manager is what they do.
Huh.
They're not.
I have a question, Jerry, and we've asked a lot of our pilots this. So if you eject at like 10 Gs, are you going to be able to like land safely, walk into a bar, and ask for a glass of water after you eject from 10 Gs, just like in Maverick Top Gun?
Well, I think at that speed, you're not surviving any ejection. But
I know. I wanted to hear your answer on that because I love that part.
You wouldn't want to eject over 400 knots because you're going to damage arms and legs. Are going to be flailing, and you're going to get hurt. You might survive, but once the airplane gets going a little closer to supersonic, I don't think you're really going to make it out of that.
Yeah, we had a guest on about a year ago.
We did, yes.
Lieutenant. He flew the Hornet, and he had to eject. And when he ejected, his body actually hit the sound barrier.
Wow.
Because he said that, I don't know the terminology, but the plane got away from him because he was dogfighting his CO. And he just kind of looking back, trying to find his CO. And when he looked down, his gauge was just going. And so he had obviously, you have split-second decision to eject or hit the ground, So he ejected, his body hit the sound barrier and broke all his bones. And he said the only thing that saved his life was it was in January and he landed in the Atlantic Ocean. So the cold water kind of constricted his body, kept him from bleeding out.
Yeah. The airplane, you can get in an undesirable position quickly when you're going that fast, especially with afterburners. That airplane can pick up speed quickly. And especially if you get nose low, you might be in a position where it's unrecoverable.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You really got to watch yourself.
When you're going that fast, can you tell you're going that fast?
Well, if you start turning, absolutely, because it's going to immediately, put a lot of G on your body. But if you're just going straight and level, it feels like normal. And then when you hit the sound barrier, you can feel a little bit of a shockwave kind of pass along the airframe. You might feel it on the stick a little bit, but once you get on the other side in your supersonic, it's very smooth. Very smooth.
What's the deal with the cloud that goes around the the plane when you hit it.
Oh yeah.
Well, the flight controls and wings are generating lift, and they create high pressure and low pressure areas. And in those low pressure areas, you're going to suck in basically any water vapor. Like if you're down in Florida, you're going to see it a lot more than if you're out in California. So you're basically creating a little cloud because you're making a low pressure area. It's sucking in the water vapor. It's almost like a little cloud. We call them vapes, but they look cool. Certainly
Yeah,
for
it looks very cool.
Yeah.
So
Did you
what's
ever
your
buzz
call?
Oh,
Sorry,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No,
No, go ahead, man. You're
I
like
was just-
you're like it's like Jeopardy, man. You were like, I'm trying to get in there, and I'm trying to time it right. And
I'll
you were
ask one
just
more
like,
question, and I'll let you talk.
No. Go ahead, man.
Have you ever
Talk to
buzzed
your
the tower?
baby.
Yeah, actually,
Talk to your shipmate.
we've buzzed quite a few things. Even even today in the airplane that I have, do a lot of buzzing, and never gotten in trouble, for that. But I mean, it's part of the fun. If you're going to fly, it makes you a better aviator. But certain things you're just not allowed to do especially in today's day and world. 50 or 100 years ago, or 50 or 70 years ago, you could get away with a lot of different things and not ruin your career. But you have to be a little more careful in today's world, especially in the military.
Yeah.
And with the flying that I do, people will take a picture of you and send it to the FAA and say, this guy buzzed my house. And you might get a letter from the feds and say,
the Karens. Oh my Lord. Karens.
Do you remember the pilot that drew a sky penis like 2 years ago?
I've never done that. I mean, that was never one of my goals in aviation was to do that.
I don't believe you brought that up.
I think they got kicked out for that.
He did, Marines, right?
I think it's a Marine. Yeah, it was a Marine pilot that did that.
yes, it was Marine. Sky. I can't believe you said. I can't believe you said sky penis. We're gonna have people calling us, being like, "Oh, they said sky penis. Holy crap!"
There's more fun things to do in an airplane than that. I don't see the point of it. But
back in the day, were you able to like sneak a girlfriend on and take her for a ride or anything like that?
No, but what we did was Wednesday night at Miramar was a big night in the officers club. So they would open the gates, and a lot of the girls from San Diego were allowed to come in, and they would have a big party on Wednesday night. Nobody really flew on Thursday morning, but we would sometimes we would do practice night carrier landings on the runway, and they had an aircraft carrier painted on the runway, and they would turn off the runway lights, and we would go do fly around and do maybe 10 landings and flying in a pattern, a racetrack pattern. And our buddy would be out there with his book, and he would be taking notes and grading our landings. But he would just take a pickup truck out there, and they had a little shed out there, and he would just watch the landings and grade us. And I remember we would have him. We would bring, occasionally a girlfriend would jump into the truck with him and go out and watch us going around, being out there at the side of the runway. And I had one time when there was a girl out there, and I had my roommate was the landing signal officer, and Eric Fudge, and he called me and said, "Hey, I think you're leaking something out of the airplane." And I looked down, and my hydraulics went to zero on one side. I said, "Oh boy!" Luckily I was at the airport, and I had the gear and flaps down. So all I had to do was drop the tail hook and come around, because they kept a cable on the runway ready for traps. So I declared an emergency, and they turned the runway lights on, and I landed. And when I dragged that tail hook down the runway, it was sparking like you wouldn't believe. And these girls thought the airplane was going to explode, even though it was just sparks. It was fun. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, good story. And then we all went to the club and toasted.
I have to make a correction for the viewers at home. 2 Navy lieutenants. The officers in question were brought before a disciplinary board, where the investigating officer recommended non-punitive letters of instruction. So the sky penises was a bad idea.
Oh yeah. Not
So
recommended.
it was 2 Navy guys, not 2 Marines.
Yeah.
But I swear
But-
I thought I heard
but you know
Marines
what-
doing it too.
But you know what happened? After that happened, I think the Marines were like, "Oh, that's all you got," and then they went out and did something stupid to try to top them.
They could have, but they said they were making they were making dinosaurs to have penises in 2017. And I don't know why we're still talking about this, but I just want to correct it.
Funny.
The Navy did it first, and then the Marines, we took it a step further.
All right.
And they probably got kicked
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
Marine Corps. That's unbecoming a gentleman and an officer.
It's true.
Mr. Goggin, what's your call sign?
I was just about
All
to
right,
ask
never
him
mind.
that.
Hey,
No,
I'm gonna retract my question. Go ahead.
no. Yeah. Hey, sir, what's your call sign?
There you go.
My call sign is Surf, SURF, because I grew up surfing in California, and I think it was when I first got to my squadron. If we weren't flying, I might sneak out a little bit early and try to go to the beach, and I think I did that. And then our squadron commanding officer called a meeting late in the afternoon, and of course I wasn't there. I was at the beach, and so that kind of gave me that name because I was out in the water somewhere in San Diego surfing.
So we got Wiz, we got Surf, we got Smurf,
Yeah.
and what was the other guy? Tappin?
Terp.
Terp. So those are some cool names, man. You guys get the cool names.
Yeah, we had some good ones in our squadron, but yeah, good memories, good friends. I still keep in touch with some of those guys today, and if I go to Tailhook, I see them, and yeah, good people.
How's
Like I
Miami?
say, Miami's good. Yeah, I keep busy down here. We do a lot of boating related things.
Good.
And,
I just thought, I don't know why I didn't think this earlier, but Lieutenant Wiz Buckley lives in Miami too. You guys should definitely hook up.
Boca Raton, a little bit
Boca
north.
Raton, yeah.
yeah, that's about an hour up the road, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I lived in Florida for 10 years, so I miss it. I was at Rollins. That's where I went to college. But I lived in Vero, Lakeland, Naples, Orlando, Jacksonville. So I miss Florida. I do. That's why I was asking.
No, it's good. I've lived all over the country. I've lived in California, Colorado,
Texas.
Pensacola. I've lived in the East Coast. I've lived in Connecticut. So I've lived in Idaho. I have my kids. You see some of them back here.
Yeah.
We have a business up there. We have a bar called Beacon that is in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and so my kids run that. So
Whoa.
I've kind of lived all over, and I think it's a spice of life. Different.
Do you really live in Miami, or do you live in like Coral Gables or
No, I live
Hialeah?
in Miami Beach and South Beach. I live
Ooh,
on the
nice.
bayside.
Cayocho, 8th Street. Very nice. Very nice, sir.
No, I live on the Key Biscayne side, the west side. So kind of facing
Beautiful.
west.
Are you
Yeah.
married right now?
No, I went through a divorce about 15 years ago.
Oh,
But I have
sorry.
5 kids. I have 5 kids that are grown, and they keep me busy, doing things with them. And so
5 kids? Holy crap.
I do, yeah.
Basketball team.
The first one's getting married soon, but yeah, age 29 to 20, almost 21.
Wow. So you
4
had them
boys.
like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, 4 boys and a girl. No, they make me proud. I have
That's
an
awesome.
engineer. One of them was a college football quarterback. One of them is in the Navy right now. He does jobs in the Navy that I'm not supposed to talk about. He gets mad at me. But
Is he a teams guy?
he's a pretty badass guy with
Mhm.
tattoos, and he runs around.
I
And
definitely think I know what job he has.
and then, yeah, and then I have a little son who's a pilot, and my daughter's a volleyball player, and so yeah, they're.
Where's
That's
she play volleyball?
Well, she was playing in Tampa, but she's off right now, and she's trying to start a business. So yeah, we're doing a couple different things with her. So yeah, I'm very lucky.
That's the newest sport that Middle Tennessee State University is about to get is beach volleyball.
Yeah, my daughter played that. And, I mean,
That
she's
was
tall.
random fact, but that is the newest
Yeah,
sport.
that was very random.
Hey, they're building the courts right now, man. It's the new Title IX thing for MTSU. So
I played volleyball in high school, and
Did
beach
you?
volleyball I played for most of my life.
you are Top Gun. He is Top Gun.
So I mean, that was
Yes.
a big deal. We played beach volleyball probably 5 days a week when I was living in San Diego.
San Diego.
So
Yes.
when they were filming Top Gun, they did a lot of the filming on the Carl Vinson, and I was there when they were filming. Two of my friends made it in the movie.
Cool.
That's his claim to fame.
That's
sir.
my claim
That's
to
his claim
fame.
to fame. And the
Yeah.
Carl Vinson.
The Carl
I
Vinson.
remember that movie. It's it made an impact, and I think this new one was very well done. So I know a lot of people saw it and liked it.
Yeah, I liked it, but I thought it was cheesy as hell when Tom Cruise hot-wired a Tomcat and flew out of enemy territory. I was like, what the hell?
Hey, I thought that was pretty cool, man.
They could have done something
on my
different.
face seeing the big fighter come to life. That's been a few years since since I know it was not real, but it looked pretty cool.
Are the Tomcats, are they like deactivated forever?
Well, most of them are in museums and on sticks in front of in parks and things. They sent a group of them to the boneyard out in Tucson, Arizona, but they've been destroying them because they don't want any black market parts coming and being sent over to Iran, because Iran still has some F-14s, and so they're trying to secure all those airplanes and the parts. They don't want anybody, doing black market stuff. So I think the airplanes are going to be gone quickly, and the ones that they do have are probably being watched. And like they have one here in Miami at the Wings of Flight, and it's a really nice airplane. It's a D model, and it's a beautiful airplane. So
yeah, I was going to ask you, how many variations are there? I don't, the guy that we just had on the last episode, he flew the F-14A, which is obviously the OG. Is that correct?
That's the OG. Yeah, I flew the A model also. I wish I had flown the other ones. So the A model, we had it was just an old school, a real fighter pilot's airplane. But, what came later was fly-by-wire and better engine technology with FADEC and, digital flight controls and all kinds of velocity vectors and HUD improvements. And so nowadays, when you look at the Super Hornets, coming aboard the carrier, they have so much technology that, it's really it's made it a lot safer for those guys, and they almost literally land on the same spot on the deck, because it's so precise. Yeah,
the Hornet pilot that we had, Smurf, on, he said his helmet, like when you looked, he could lock on just by looking. He said he could look behind him and engage somebody behind him.
Wow. See, I never had that kind of technology.
That's crazy.
I mean, we didn't wear scarves and head out the window, but we were
the Red Baron. Dun, 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 dun.
We were kind of the last of the old school fighter pilots, I think, in that airplane.
That's pretty cool, sir. You
Thanks.
that's a part of history. And
that is awesome.
A very cool part of history.
I tell you, I was lucky, but also humbled. I always felt like I was in the presence of America's best. And I always felt like, maybe I don't belong here, but, I just tried to fake my way through it and seemed to work okay. I never had to punch out of one.
Did you ever get taught by a guy named Hoot Gibson?
No, but I knew I'd heard of him, and he was before my generation. I think he was older.
He lives in this town.
Yeah, he eventually became an astronaut and he did
correct.
With
five NASA missions. Yeah, I actually had dinner with him like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
when you get him on the show, man, quit talking about it.
Hey, listen, I got he's got to write me back, man.
Pretty impressive career for him.
Yeah,
I think he flew 162 different aircraft and helicopters.
Yeah,
he's a storyteller. He's a good Navy shipmate, man. Good storyteller.
That's one hell of a career.
Yes.
Very cool. No, I was just Joe Squadron pilot, and then after my time on the Ranger, and then I transitioned, and I got selected to go to the Navy Reserve there at Miramar, and I was very lucky because there were quite a few people trying to get in that squadron, and that was a really cool place to be at Miramar. These a bunch of airline pilots flying Tomcats on the weekends or on their days off. And so I really enjoyed my time with those guys. I still see some of them today. One of them lives near me here in Miami. So, but they're all a bunch of airline pilots who are now getting close to their retirement.
Right. So how do you go from flying like one of the baddest planes the Navy owns to like walking away from that and going to like an airline pilot or
Well,
flying slow?
you have these hard decisions to make. Flying the Tomcat is, being a fighter pilot, it's one of the coolest jobs in America, but it's also very demanding. You're giving a lot of your time, and I spend a lot of time at sea, and it's dangerous out there. You more than once, you get out of the airplane and say, I could have died today. But at that time too, a lot of us are thinking about starting families, and being in the Navy with a wife and young children is really difficult. Some guys do it and they find a way to make that work, but I kind of decided it was time to start a family and maybe move on. The airline was, kind of a natural choice. I've since gone on to do some other businesses, which just because the airline industry is so up and down, you never know if you're going to get laid off next week but anyway, but airline flying is very docile. I actually did have an engine failure about 2 years ago on takeoff with 200 passengers. And that was it was a big boom right after takeoff. And it turned into a 6-minute flight, just turning downwind and landing. It was an eye opener, but the airplane flies pretty good with one engine, and those passengers were all pretty happy afterwards. They came up and thanked me, and it was a pretty rewarding experience.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm ever on a commercial flight, I want an ex-military guy flying my plane.
Well, there's a lot of good civilian pilots. It's just they can't. The training in the Navy, particularly, is as it gets. So just the precision, to fly and cross the back end of that ship 10 feet is very precise. That kind of precision doesn't exist elsewhere.
Yep. What do you do if you have to go to the bathroom in your Tomcat?
Well, they had these. It's almost like a sandwich pack with a sponge inside it, and you could kind of go into that thing and seal it up. But I never really used one. I always even though I had a couple long missions over Iraq where we were refueling 2 or 3 times and managed to kind of get back before. But when you're young, you can do that. Again,
True.
The older guys, probably not so much. But
that was a great question, Flick. That was a good one.
Well, I was just thinking, I was going back from F-14 to airliner. Like an airliner, you just get up and go with the head. You can't do that in a fighter plane.
My last plane that I took to New York on the way back, the pilot he was a Navy pilot, and I thanked him for his service because I saw his wings, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta, hey skipper, thanks a lot, man, thanks for your service. Yeah, you guys that's pretty cool.
There's fewer and fewer these days, just because there's not as many military guys getting out. And back in our day, the military was bigger. There's been cuts to aviation, and at Tailhook, I think the rumor was that in the future that it's going to be 60% unmanned naval aviation. So the airlines are really working hard to try to ramp up their training programs and get some younger civilian guys trained. I have a son who's a civilian trained pilot, and I fly with him, and he does a good job. I've got to try to teach him some Navy things, but he'll eventually be doing that. He's flying cargo right now, so he's doing well. He's only 20. He's almost 24. So,
oh wow, that's pretty impressive.
Your son that's in the Navy that we can't really talk about. What's his rank? Is he in the Navy? What rank is he?
He's an E5. I think he's testing for E6 pretty soon. And he went in right after high school, and he got a contract, to go do cool things. And he's a
I love how he says that. I love it.
I mean, he's a big, strong kid, and if he runs up against any bad guys in some jungle or swamp, I kind of feel sorry for the other guy.
Is he a good swimmer?
He's a great swimmer. I can tell you that I took him on a vacation down to South America, down to Medellin, and he got separated from us at night, and he was walking back to the hotel about 3:00 in the morning through this park, and somebody made the mistake of trying to jump him with a knife, and that didn't work out so well.
Whoa!
So he put that guy down real fast and verified that his training was good.
Hey, we're
That's
getting
amazing.
Wow, that's hot.
Hey,
That's awesome.
America needs men like your son. That's all I got to say.
Well, they have him. I mean, he's surrounded by a good group of people, and again, I don't know, like if you ask me where he is on a given day, I probably couldn't even tell you because a lot of times I don't know where he is, but when we do touch base, he's doing well, so
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, America has challenges. We have, the South China Sea is a big deal. The sea lanes there, the mission of the Navy is pretty important, and especially in that part of the world.
Yep.
So
it's getting a little hot and heavy over there right now.
And the Marine Corps is, as they're Force Design 2030. They're trying to be more littoral, going back to our roots of beach landings and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think
a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah, I mean it's meaner and meaner, a little bit less money. They all have to kind of make more happen with it. And the hardware is so expensive, it chews up a big part of the budgets.
Except for the Marine Corps, because we get we get the stuff from Vietnam, so we make it work.
Even your MREs.
Chili Mac is the best by far. I love Chili Mac.
Hey, you know what's better than Chili Mac MRE?
Please say nothing.
No, walking over to the chow hall and just getting a normal meal.
Yes, if I was home, but for 3 years out of the 4, I was gone. So couldn't really go to the chow hall.
Mid-rats isn't that bad,
There's no mid-rats in Ramadi, sir. Maybe Camp Ramadi, but I never went there that many times.
Thinking back, probably not the best thing to be eating a couple slices of pizza right before you go to bed.
That's true.
Midnight or morning, but
exactly.
And this is the thing that gets me. I used to eat like 5 MREs a day, and those are like 2,000 calories. But I was like 182 pounds. I like drinking
water. Do you know how much
like
sodium intake that is?
Yeah, dude, I was like on top of my game in 2006, and now I'm like 267 pounds. And I'm trying to go the opposite way before I turn like 50. I got 5 more years to go. Actually, my birthday is next week. So,
all right. Well, happy birthday.
4 years.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We're actually over an hour. I don't want to keep Mr. Goggins too long.
Jerry, do you have any saved rounds for our listeners, sir?
Anything you want to talk about?
Well, I would just say, that if you're an American, you should be proud of our military. Sometimes, there's disparaging politicians that may say things, but our military is good enough. Our military is the best in the world, and we can accomplish any goal that's intelligently planned or assigned by the politicians in DC. So I think if you're an American paying your taxes, you should be proud, and you should go to the air show and say, look what we created. And, all the other countries around the world, they can't, build these kind of airplanes. And a lot of their pilots aren't good enough to fly them the way that we fly them either. Some countries have good training and such, but I think what we've seen in Russia is that, their capabilities in Ukraine were vastly overestimated. So, most people are not very impressed watching what they've been doing over there for the last year and a half. So I was humbled and lucky to be there to be able to do that. And, I always looked up to the guys I flew with, guys like Dave Possum Cully. These guys were legends who, in Miramar, there flying legends out there who I was lucky enough to serve with and learn from. So some of them became Blue Angels, like Scooter Moyer. He was a squadron mate, and other guys like Ted Rutherford, who's an airline pilot now. But these guys taught us, how to be a fighter pilot. Like I said, when I showed up, I was really a boy, and they were the men. And in the course of those years that I was there, they transferred that knowledge to us. So I appreciate them.
Excellent.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Shout out to my buddies Fritz and Bagger out there.
Bagger. Now that is a hot name. Bagger.
Yeah, old Bagger. Bagger Searns, Jim Searns. Great guy. Living in San Diego, living the life.
Yeah, if you guys end up hearing this and you guys want to do your episode, man, give us a shout. We would love to hear your story.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, maybe I'll get him in touch with you. But you probably
for
too many Tomcat guys. But we.
I don't care. Hey, our mission is to talk to everybody, man. Seriously, I love this.
I'll give Wiz a call and I'll have him invite you to a Panthers game. He's got a box.
All right, perfect. That's not that good. Far. Very cool.
You guys can ride around in his L-39.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll probably look for him because I go to these air shows too. If I see his L-39, I'll just go up and introduce. I'm sure he'll be at Sun and Fun. That's a big one.
Yeah, he's down to earth, good dude, really good dude.
Yeah, I flew the Takano in Sun and Fun last year. That was a lot of fun, and then also Oshkosh. So I look for these guys and introduce myself.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, do you guys have any questions or?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your service. Tell your son thank you for his service, and God bless you and your family. We appreciate you, everything you've done for us.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And
I'm gonna go watch Top Gun tonight, so I'm in the mood right now.
Yeah. Maybe I'll watch it after the Lions game. I have to go watch the Lions.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch football, but hey, it's all true. Everything in that movie's true.
Yes. All right, Mr. Goggin. Thanks a lot. Stick around. I just want to make sure your upload